Hey, welcome back to another episode of She's Busy AF. If you are joining us on the podcast, hey. If you are joining us on YouTube here, hello. And just know that vice versa, you can have an audio experience or you can have a visual experience by going to YouTube. So if you're new here on the podcast or if you're new here on YouTube, hi, my name is Lauren. I am the host of She's Busy AF. I am a marketing consultant, a brand mentor, a show it web designer. I do all the things, but what I am most passionate about, I would say, is guiding entrepreneurs, guiding small businesses with strategy, and just taking a strategy-led approach to everything I do with them. Because strategies are what move the needle, strategies are what get you places, good strategies, of course. And my background is that I was a former agency owner. I had a boutique marketing agency for about 5 years. I sold that agency and started my multi-passionate business of my dreams. And so with that led, I have definitely had my fair share of needing to fire clients, starting with wanting to fire clients and needing to fire clients. And I've had quite the go with that, having to actually do it, the pains of it, the joys of it, because there are joys with that too. So some questions I've been getting more recently, actually put up on my story one day that one of my to-do list items was to fire a client, and someone was like, actually a couple people were like, how do you do that? Or I would love to hear more on this. So this kind of prompted me to open up a conversation about when it's right and when it's the time to fire a client and some ways to do that. Because there are good ways to do it, there are wrong ways to do it, there are ways to do it that can probably get you in legal and financial trouble, and we want to avoid that at all costs. So I will preface this with, I am not a lawyer. I am speaking from the experiences I've had. I always advise working with a lawyer when it comes to anything contractual. Always. And I will just say, I endorse lawyers 100%. You should always have contracts with all of your clients for any work that you are doing for them, or at least some terms and conditions. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so I'm going to be giving 4 reasons to fire a client because I feel like in my years of doing business, there are 4 big standout things that have told me, okay, maybe I should fire this client. And then I'm going to give you some ways to do it, because there are non-ethical ways to fire a client and stop working with them, and there are ethical ways to fire clients and stop working with them. And we're going to focus on the ethical ones because we don't want to get in trouble. And also, the last thing we want is to ruin your reputation. So reason number 1 is blatant disrespect. Now, this could look like the client is disrespecting contractual boundaries. They are, you're entering something of what I like to call scope creep, which just means the work that you agreed on doing, they are now asking for more things outside of this, and they are doing this routinely. They are doing this routinely. Oh my gosh, I just had a thing. Okay, another thing is that they're never happy with the work that you've produced. They're always complaining, and they really don't have a reason to, or it's starting to get you down a little bit. And all of this, or any of these, are keeping you up at night. Now, what this does is causes resentment when they do ask for work, or when it does come time to do the work. And you probably notice that they're the ones you push to the bottom of the list when there's something to get done. This is a telltale sign that this is not working well as a client and service provider relationship. So that is one reason to fire a client. Another reason is that they're unresponsive, or they're not taking, on the flip side, not taking full advantage of the scope of work or their responsibilities within the scope. We all know that client relationships are a two-way street. I have yet to see a service providing business where communication or deliverables of some sort are not necessary for the success of that relationship. If you're a social media manager, you need to have them approve the work, or they need to be involved in some extent in the strategy and approving of what is happening. If they trust you all out and you never have to talk, great, but I just don't think that that makes for a good relationship. You want to be able to show the value that you're providing as a service provider. But tying it all back, typically they have deliverables and things they owe you. If they are not getting you those things or falling flat on that, but they're continuing to pay you, or when they get it to you, it's super late and it puts you behind with other clients, these can be like really unethical situations and can cause some trouble, whether with your other clients or in your personal life, feeling like you have to work a little bit more because they come in at the last minute with something, or they're just not getting you anything at all, but they're paying their invoices, but nothing's getting done. And that is unethical within itself. And that's actually the reason why I had to fire a client, is because they were not giving me the things I needed to be able to help them. Therefore, we're just collecting a check, waiting on those things, and again, not an ethical way to do business. So that is reason number 2. Reason to fire a client number 3 is that they are constantly late on paying invoices, no matter how big or small. I've had someone flunk on a $47 a month membership multiple times and then asked to rejoin. No. I've also had clients who consistently pay 30, 45 days late, and at the end of the day, it's just not worth it, nor is it fair to the clients you have who do pay on time. Something I like to do to mitigate this, not that I really wanted to go here, but something I like to do to mitigate this is have something in the contract that states, no more than 15 days, or like net 15 or net 30, and at that point fees start to accrue if they're not fees start to incur if they have not made their payment yet. And this typically works well because then they have an obligation to do so. But then there are times when people fall over that, and the next thing you know, they're getting a bill for those overcharges. And so you really just want to make sure that they're not late on paying invoices, they're on time, and if they're not able to stick to this, it's not a good client to work with. Okay, reason number 4 is unethical work practices. This has not necessarily happened to me, but I've heard of this happening to some other biz clients of mine, biz besties, actual clients of mine. But let's say a client is lying to their customers, or cheating their customers and clients, or practicing their work or product in a shady way that maybe doesn't align with how you do business or how you would want to be associated with them. If it makes you uncomfortable, you should not be working with this person. Now, I understand sometimes you may not be aware of these things until you are working with the client. I think as time goes on, I've been able to see red flags with clients that or potential clients that have pushed me away from working with them to begin with. I have absolutely turned down clients because I have felt like it wasn't going to be a good ethical fit, or that it didn't align with my values. I worked at an agency fresh out of college that refused to work with fast food or soda brands because one of their big core beliefs and missions, and they even paid for gym memberships, was that the health was important, and they would be endorsing the opposite of that if they decided to work with that type of client. So that's just another example of I guess when you're going into client relationships, not necessarily when you're ready to fire, but let's just say, if there are some of these unethical work practices happening, that is absolutely a reason to fire them. It could also save you a lot of legal trouble if it really is absolutely unethical, illegal, immoral, all of those things. So there are a couple of ways to ethically fire clients and ultimately avoid major drama. The first one is going to be to give a formal written notice and pay mind to any contractual obligations you might have. So again, this comes back to having a contract. In my agreements, I ask for a 30-day notice, written cancellation, and I offer the same thing, stating that either party can terminate their contract at any time. And I recommend, again, I'll say this a million times, working with a lawyer if you don't have client agreements, to make sure that you are protected in this way, that you can get out, but also that they can get out. It's just the best way to do business in these situations. And I'm also, while I don't necessarily believe in manifesting, I'm also a big believer that if something's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. If a client's going to have a 30-day out clause and they're going to leave, they're going to leave. And there's a bigger reason for that. So that's number 1. The second is make sure that all your work with them is wrapped up entirely, deliverables and all. Go back to the scope of work that you agreed on. Make sure everything's been delivered on before you fire them. this gives them no reason to come after you in the long run, because if you've promised work completed and you've promised deliverables, you do need to deliver on that. So wait till you are at a place where those deliverables have been complete, and then it's time. And also make sure you leave them with the tools to not need you again. So what this could look like, if you're a web designer, is doing, maybe as a courtesy, if you don't already do this already, have a video walkthrough of how they can edit some of the things on their site that you've been editing for them. That's one example. If it's a social media manager, or if you are a social media manager or someone doing social media strategy, perhaps you hand over some of the guidelines for the strategy, best practices for them, the hashtags. Again, totally dependent on what you are willing to hand over as intellectual property. But really giving them, making sure they have all their passwords. I've had that before, where clients I've let go have come to me and been like, I can't find, like years later, I cannot find my Instagram password. What is it? Make sure they have all of these things in a place where you can send them back and say, nope, it's all here, or they don't have to reach out in general. And my last one here is to make sure you have a next step plan for them. Don't just leave them in the dark, no matter how shitty they are. The best way I like to do this is have a list of referrals. I've also done this in the proposal process if I've just felt like it's not a good vibe with someone, and I'm just like, okay, you know what, let me give you a list of people who do the same thing that you can work with, because I don't want to take this on, but I don't actually tell them that. So for this one, I would just say, have a deck of referrals of people you've already talked to and said, hey, I'm letting this client go. Would you be interested in working with them? And just allowing them to take this somewhere else. This is a really good way to not damage your reputation. And maybe not necessarily you have to say, I don't want to work with you anymore because of XYZ. You could say that you're moving in a different direction with your business, but here are some people that I think could do a really good job for you. So I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, shoot me a DM on Instagram or LinkedIn. Both are linked in the description and show notes. And please don't forget to subscribe. I put out tips like this weekly. My goal is to help entrepreneurs and small businesses really thrive. And I know that firing clients is a hot topic because it will happen to you at some point if it has not already. So again, hope you found this helpful. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next episode of She's Busy AF.